I have a few mottos that I go by. Yeah. One is submit, forget, submit, forget. Learn to love auditioning without being attached to the outcome, whether you get the job or not.
Welcome back to the Gold Street Creative Pro podcast. I'm Eric Michael Kapp, and we are continuing with part 2 with our special guest, Jules Jaselle. So Jules, let's talk about some of the real-world challenges that you experience as a voiceover actor, actress, finding work. How do you find work? How do you find an agent? How do you find clients? Okay, maybe you've got your demo, and you've got that out on a website, and you're auditioning regularly. Maybe you're on one of those websites,
online casting,
whatever, LA Casting, etc. Sure. But you're not getting any calls backs so far.
Okay.
How do you do that, and how do you keep auditioning when the phone isn't ringing or you're not getting those responses to your emails, and kind of keep your spirit up?
Right. Yeah, that's actually an excellent question. And it's one that, again, it's different for everyone, right? I started without an agent. It stumbled into my world, and I started doing it, right? So where we are today, there are so many more opportunities out there because of the online casting as being, something to be able to market yourself. It's a marketing, or a marketplace, I should say, right? Part of it is when you do find your niche in whatever area it is. Again, I suggest to people, don't try to be all things to all people. Find the thing that makes you. And, gets a client interested in your version of what you're presenting and your abilities and your performance,
so right? How does somebody do that who's not sure? Maybe they like, I like audiobook narration, I like characters, I like this, people sound good at this. How do you really kind of narrow your focus to kind of figure out what is it that I do best? I may be good at this, and this, but what am I great at? Because you're in LA. This is probably arguably one of the most, if not the most competitive markets there is. There is just so many amazing talents. And when I get auditions in, most of the time, there's any number of people, half a dozen people who could do the job.
Right.
I mean, there's just minute differences, and it's really a style choice.
Right.
Oftentimes with my client, myself, and then my client's client, and we all sit together and figure it out.
So it's again, the back and forth communication with someone that knows the market. I would
like a coach.
Like a coach. And again, it can't just be any coach. It has to be someone that's avidly in, the industry and in the business currently. Someone that worked 20 years ago that's not working today is not going to be a good fit.
Right.
You need to see what are the credits, the current credits and the credibility of that this person has to give me proper advice, right? Yep. There's a lot of people that have information, not to say that what they have to offer isn't valuable, but you have to be realistic. Like for me, I've always, been apt to like, hey, you're successful. Let me, pick your brain. What are you doing that's working for you that I could follow suit in some way or apply in my own, set of goals to get me where I'm trying to go, right? So I think it's important to be very selective and know, who you're getting involved with. Just because someone might be popular out there doesn't mean that they have valuable advice. So it's important to have that constant feedback and a soundboard, if you will, of like, okay, you might enjoy doing audiobooks, but is that really where you fit on that spectrum? You have to be realistic. I have my favorite things, and that might not be your niche though.
Right.
You need to discover that. That's a part of the process of self-discovery of where you fit and will essentially find the success, because it's out there. You just have to know how to market yourself. So marketing and branding are just as equally, if not more important than learning the craft.
Right.
So, and before you even step into a booth and say, I'm ready to do my demo, you have to know exactly, well, what are the clients that would be apt to hire me? What would make sense for me to try and go for an audition, because there are specific clients. If you do your research, there's a certain type, like say, for example, Nike has a certain tone in the type of ads that they do, if we're going to talk about commercials and things like that, right? So it's understanding who the client is, the company, their product, and hey, you know what? I'm suitable for that tone that they like to do. And so that essentially, if you start looking at it from that perspective, it's not trying to just throw random things on the wall and see what sticks. No, it's got to be strategic. But the only way to get that strategy and really figure out a proper game plan so that you do find that success and the phone doesn't stop ringing is that you are properly suited and fitted for that type of material or that type of product.
Right.
And so the only way to do that is trial and error. And figuring it out. I always say it's like we're going shopping. Here, try this script on, see how that does for you. Right. Do we need to alter it or no, let's try this one instead. Okay, that's the fit for you.
Right.
So you need that constant back and forth.
Right. Finding your niche. Demo advice. What should I put on my demo? Or demos, plural.
Right. You should definitely have more than one demo. Obviously, if you're multilingual, you'd want to have one that is in, each of the respective languages. I have some clients that speak 5 languages. So you'd have to have one in Italian, one in French, one in Spanish, one in Portuguese, or whatever the languages are that you are an expert in or fluent in that's usable. But that, takes a bit of research in each of those languages, just like in the American English. Obviously, we work on things where we translate from English to whatever language is necessary for whatever project, right? But it's the same process where you have to do your due diligence and research. Okay, what realistically am I suitable for? And have, again, with the proper coach and the proper feedback. I don't suggest you just going in and doing whatever the heck you want. I can share a brief story of, and this was a friend of mine. God love her.
Well-meaning.
She's such a sweetheart, and she's so amazingly talented. Not to take anything away from her, but she said, "You know what? I think I'm going to just do my own demos. I think I got this. I can do it." And I'm like, "Okay, sure, cool."
So she was just going to record them.
She was just going to record them. I have my studio. I think I have confidence that I know what I'm doing. And I said, okay, great.
No need for a producer or anyone
right. So she goes ahead and does this. Now, to add to it, she has a very unique sound. She's got a lisp, a natural lisp that's just kind of there. Hi, my name's Ashley. I'm here to say hello. She's got that very, it's in the Meisner technique, which is acting, we call those things impediments. Not that they hinder, but it's a part of, sometimes a character needs to have an impediment, be it an accent, be it a stutter, be it a lisp, right? And those things we add on in addition to the acting that we make as, choices. So when she did her commercial reel, she decided to do a read for I think it was Revlon or Maybelline, something like this, right? Only at Maybelline, which they tend, if you've done your research or listened to any of these Revlon ads or makeup ads, they're usually a little sassy, flirtatious, kind of, there's a kind of a sexy undertone to it, right? Like, only at Revlon, where with the lisp, it's going to take away from that delivery and that performance that would make a client of that nature or that style of types of adverts that they do want to hire you.
Right.
Now, what my point is take what you are naturally and find the things and the places where you fit. Now, she would be amazing at something comical, something that's a little lighter tone, something maybe goofy related, not goofy the character, but just you get fun.
Lighthearted.
And so you have to take these things into consideration. Just because you think, okay, someone else did it, I'm going to do that. It might not work for you. And so, to compare and contrast, the other person who I helped guide that she knows also, she's like, well, I'm not getting any, leads off of my reel. It was such a waste. And now she's given up on it. When really it's just a matter of fine tuning and changing some things to make you, enticing to a client that, hey, she fits in that spectrum of what we're looking for our needs.
Right.
It's all about the producer's needs. It's not about you. It's not about the ego. It's not about like...
Right. The customer is the hero.
Exactly.
As those of us familiar with Don Miller's story brand, the customer, the client is the hero, and it's all about them, not us.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about, we were talking a little bit about the voiceover marketplace earlier and how that's progressed. And now you have all of these online marketplaces, which are good and convenient. I certainly have used some of them.
Right.
Voices 1, 2, 3, LA Casting, etc. But they also have a downside. And that downside oftentimes is the commoditization of, your craft.
Right.
And there are people, I'm talking more like people who are inexperienced. Maybe you have a small business and you want somebody to do a voiceover for you, and you just have no clue, and you think, well, I can just hire someone on Fiverr or go on these things and pay someone whatever. Give me some advice for the voiceover talent as to how to navigate that, because a lot of these sites are kind of pay for play, and some of them are okay and some of them are not.
Right. Exactly.
And also advice for clients. I've seen things where I've read like a description on there, and I've looked at what they were offering for the pay, and I've just laughed out loud. I mean, are you kidding me? You want them to read this many hours for this much money? You just have a clue. So now, some of these services do provide some kind of guidance, but a lot of them don't. And there is a free market, so and there always seems to be kind of the bottom feeders, the person who's starting out, who is willing to do something cheap.
Right.
To kind of get their foot in the door, but oftentimes they're actually, what they're doing is counterproductive long term. So
exactly. Exactly. And it's such a complex conversation to have, because everyone is on a different level, right? And so, if you're looking at it from the perspective, well, I just want to work, I'll take anything, then you're going to operate from a different mentality, right? But what that does to, the industry as a whole is it does bring it down to a degree. Right. So I've worked with voice. I haven't been on there in a few years now, because I have agents, worldwide. And I just have a book of business that I'm consistent with. But now that we have an online casting called voiceovers.com, that has definitely been an eye-opening experience, learning the other side of things and where things sit. As far as rates, we created decipher.com, which is a rate card that helps producers figure it out. A lot of times, producers don't always know the proper rates. Sometimes, especially the smaller ones in smaller markets, there's a need to be filled. They need a talent to come in and execute what they need done for their purposes, but they don't always know. They don't have proper guidance. I think sites like the Fivers and the voices.com have definitely basically driven down the industry, unfortunately, and have quite a bitter taste in a lot of people's mouths. And this is just, we go to conferences yearly, every year. The next one coming up is VO Atlanta. And so we'll be there. But just the conversations and in a lot of the experiences that they are holding for people are negative. And unfortunately, it shouldn't be that way. I feel voiceover it's usually the last piece of the puzzle that's added onto a production. Right. So sometimes it gets swept under the rug in the sense of like, oh, well, it's no big deal. Anyone can do it, but that's not really true. Right. It's not really true. You're talking about, the professionals or even the intermediate folks that invest, in the products that they have to serve, the industry producers that are looking for things. They're investing their time, they're investing their money in equipment and really making sure that it's up to par. When you go to Fiverr, it's just doing a disservice to the industry as a whole.
It is. It's not just the talent level, but it's the
No,
actual
it's everything.
deliverable, the audio quality, because, at the end of the day, whoever you're choosing to voice your spot, whether it's a Facebook ad, YouTube ad, whatever, they are the voice of your brand, your
Right.
company, your product.
Right.
And if that voice sounds not convincing, well, why would I buy your product or service?
Exactly.
If the production sounds like it was done in your bedroom, and nothing wrong with doing something in your bedroom, but it was, consumer gear and you've got the dog barking and the truck's
Right.
going past, it doesn't inspire confidence in your brand, in your products, in your service, in what you're doing.
Right.
So, they are your voice.
And it behooves producers to really think about this and take these things into consideration, because if you're at a place in your business where, okay, now it's time to market ourselves or put ourselves out there, be it a web commercial or on, if it's an online commercial thing or anything really, it matters. It really, really does affect the feedback in what you're going to get for your product or your service or whatever it is. So it's extremely important that you take those things into consideration and really think about, okay, well, what's the right, voice or talent that we need that's going to be the proper representation of what we're trying to establish ourselves out there.
Right.
You have bigger clients, obviously the corporate clients like Target, Walmart, so on and so forth. They take these things into consideration. And if you really pay attention to the marketing that's behind it, is it's all very strategically planned in getting the attention from the consumers that you want to notice or take notice of your product. So if you, for lack of a better term, I hate to say this, but if you half-ass it just to save $20 or whatever, you're really doing a disservice to yourself and your product. And it's just, it's night and day. It's an experience that would be completely, opposite of each other. So,
right. Yeah. They say penny wise, pound foolish. Again, I mean, you get what you pay for ultimately. And hiring an amateur, you're going to get an amateur sound and an amateur quality product versus hiring a professional who's going to give you a professional quality product, even if it's just on a web marketing. We're not even talking about broadcast spots or anything like that, because so much marketing now is done on the web. It's done on Facebook, on YouTube, on whatever, Pinterest, Instagram, etc. But again, you're selling, especially if it's an expensive product or service, the quality of everything, not just the visuals, but the voice behind it, the music. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've seen ads using the same free stock music.
Right.
And again, it just reflects poorly on you. So don't let voiceover be like the final thing and go, wow, we don't have much money left because we spent so much money shooting this spot, using this camera and that and this director and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And now I've only got a couple of hundred left for the voice talent.
Yeah.
That's not...
It's not going to be good. And I think disguised virtuosity is what I call it. So when someone's really excellent at something, you don't notice all of the technicalities and the things and, the efforts that have gone into establishing that to happen on the spot. So when someone thinks, oh, anybody can do this and they get down to it, it really isn't. That is not the case.
No, not as easy as it looks. And there are a lot of people who think, well, I can do that. I'll just go down to wherever, Guitar Center, Sam Ash, I'll buy a microphone and this, and I'll start doing this in my bedroom. And there are so many people doing that, which transitions to gear. So let's talk a little bit about gear. I had you bring in your own mic today, and I'm going to have same thing with future guests. I'm going to ask you to bring in your own mic. So, so tell us a little bit about the gear that you use, and maybe recommend, say, for somebody who's just getting into it, a starter package, and for those who are professional like you, something that's not going to maybe break the bank, but still give professional results.
So there's a few things that I use. So this happens to be a baby bottle made from Blue Microphones, and this one and the Ember, which I have at home, are two of my favorites. Actually,
very cool looking mics.
They are really cool, and
they sound great too.
They do sound great. We've actually done testing on them where we had 3 different microphones at the same time recording. And
blind tests, right?
Just a blind test, and then the playback, which the engineer did not mention until after we made our choice. Okay, which audio file did we prefer, A, B, or C? And when we selected this one, we didn't know that we were selecting this one. And so the feedback that I've gotten personally from clients is, whatever you're doing, don't change it. We love it. And I've actually recorded things that went to broadcast. I've done ads for Walmart, Capital One Visa, a Disney campaign that was done on this microphone, and they loved it. These are my Source Connect sessions that I do primarily from home with my New York clients. And so this is the gear that I use at home.
And what are you recording into? What's your audio interface and your
Apogee.
setup? So using Apogee.
Yes, so Apogee is our other favorite. and there's things that you can get that are, affordable. Like the Focusrite makes some things as well. It all depends on the budgets that you have to work with. But my go-to is Apogee and Blue microphones.
Right, yeah, great stuff. And again, the mic is going to be a little different for everybody because different mics work better on different voices. So
exactly.
Just because Jules is using this or I'm using an RE27 here doesn't mean that that's the right mic for you. You really do have to go and try the mics out to a store and just test them out and see what works on your particular voice.
Right. So, and it depends what you're recording too. If you're doing character type things, are you singing? Or is it, just an explainer? I mean, it all just is going to make a difference on that too.
Right. Yeah. And Apogee make top-notch gear. We've been using an Apogee Rosetta here for, 12, 13 years. And they make fantastic quality gear, great clean preamps, great AD and DA converters, and just a range of different products at different price points. I mean, you can buy the little one, you've got the Duet, you've got the Quartet, and then you've got the Pro Symphony line that the big studios will use. But you can get in there fairly economically. Reasonably. They even have a mic, I think, right?
They do. I actually just got it. It's
good for demos
the portable. Oh, it's I love it. It's got built-in compression in it. It's the Hype mic. That's it.
Hype mic. All right.
Yeah, the Apogee Hype mic. Oh my gosh, I love it. You can have it dry with no compression, and then it's got 3 actual switches on it. So the first one is like a medium or a lower kind of setting of compression, and then the third is obviously the highest. But I did something on it because I was traveling and it was a rush. Oh, we need this right now, which is another part of voiceover that there's always a fire to put out.
Well, yeah, there are people I know they take a very portable setup wherever they go and they're traveling so that they can do their auditions because they're being asked. They may be on vacation, but they need to be able to deliver something in the hotel and sometimes even an end product.
Exactly.
And they'll travel with little portable booth setups and sound blankets and
I am guilty as
record
charged.
in the closet of their hotel.
I've had to do that.
But the beauty of those systems are, you don't have to know a lot of technical engineering type stuff, which can be intimidating to some people as well, which is another aspect which we'll probably talk about in another episode about, okay, well, I love the craft of acting and voiceover, but I don't know much about engineering and do I record in Audition or Pro Tools or Reaper or Logic and what's a compressor and EQ and
it can be overwhelming
and
all
of those things because that's part of the delivering an end product that you've got to learn or you've got to find someone who can help you with that.
Yeah.
But solutions like the Apogee or even things like Rode make a podcaster setup that's very easy. It's got built-in compression.
Right.
So you don't have to do anything in post-production.
Right. And Blue makes like the Raspberry, they make Yetis, the new Yeti that they came out with called the Yeti X. That's pretty excellent. Like they're definitely working every year. They kind of develop new technology for things that are easy to use that you just kind of plug right in, or if you're on the go. So there's things that you can choose from
Lots of
that aren't going to break the bank.
And we'll leave some links to some of the products that Jules has mentioned in the show notes in case you want to check out, Blue Mics, Apogee, and some of the other things that we're going to cover here as we get towards the end. So a couple more questions, Jules. Limiting beliefs. I want to get into this, whether you're a voice actor, a music person, whatever it is. What are some of the limiting beliefs that you've had to overcome personally? Those lies or things that maybe at the beginning or even today, oh, gee, the phone hasn't rung for a while, or I didn't get that job.
Right.
What are some of those things, those voices that come in, and how do you deal with those and kind of reject that, those lies and negative thoughts that sometimes just
they creep in
and we lose confidence. And you can be very successful or have a period of success, but then suddenly
there's a lull or something.
There's a lull, and like, okay, what is it? What am I doing wrong? Is it me? Is it them? And sometimes nothing to do with you. It's just the way things are, right?
Absolutely. And there's some things that are out of our control. Sometimes it's a project that was amazing that you submitted for, and it's, now it's on hiatus, or it's shelved, or
we had one recently.
Right. And it's things that have nothing to do with your skill set or your abilities. One thing, I have a few mottos that I go by. One is submit, forget, submit, forget. Learn to love auditioning without being attached to the outcome, whether you get the job or not. And look at it from the perspective of like, oh, wow, this is a new opportunity for me to test my skills or push my limits to try a new something, whatever that might be, without having the attachment. And I've had to learn to do this myself because I get attached. I'm like, oh, that was a good one. I hope I get it. And you do hope you get it. Like, I'm not saying not to do that, but don't be so attached that it hinders you from continuing looking forward to the new things that are coming that are just down the pipeline. Like I said, I audition a lot. I book a lot as well. I don't book everything.
Right.
But
nobody does.
Nobody does. And that's okay, because I've learned to look at it. And I think Ned said this in one of the workshops, because we do workshops with Ned for like Disney ADR kind of stuff. And one of the things he said when we were working with younger children, he said like this: if you wanted a pizza and on your pizza you really, really wanted pepperoni, right? Okay, that's what you have your mind set on. This is what you need. This is, that's going to satisfy what you're craving, right? And here you walk in and you're an amazing Hawaiian pizza. Now, there's nothing wrong with Hawaiian pizza, right?
All right, Hawaiian pizza. Who doesn't love Hawaiian pizza, right? Okay.
Right. But if you're a Hawaiian pizza and the producer really needed pepperoni, does that make you less than, or does that make you not as good as pepperoni? No, it's just that they needed pepperoni for the time being. Maybe down the road they need Hawaiian, and you're Hawaiian that they're going to call.
Right. Yeah.
So it's looking at it from the perspective of, hey, it's really got to be about the right person for the right job. There's things that I've auditioned for that I didn't get, and I heard, the finale once it was aired, and I was like, I get it. That's not who I am. Right. Not that what I submitted was bad. That's just not what was right for what they were trying to do. It can be a little frustrating, but like I said, submit, forget, and hurry up and wait. Always submit. Like when you get an audition, even if the deadline is next Tuesday, try to turn it in later that day or by the following day, because if it goes in the first batch of auditions, you're going to get a higher likelihood of getting a call back, especially if the producer finds what they need in the first 5 or 10, audio clips, and they can move on and finalize what they need to get done to get onto the next thing. You're alleviating their problem. It's about satisfying those pain points for people. It's not, you might be amazing, but there's other areas on the business side of it that you have to incorporate and find a balance of knowing, hey, am I being on time with my auditions? Learn to, time management and money management, because sometimes the checks don't come right away. That's another area that people get confused. Well, Why does it take 30 days? I don't know. It just does. Sometimes it takes 60.
Unless you work for me.
Unless you work with you. You're amazing.
What we do is when you do a job, you walk out with the check. We always pay our talent at the end. And we do that because I insist our clients pay
and that's
up front.
amazing.
So and we cover everything. So you can go straight
that
to the bank.
That is not always the case. And this is amazing that it is with you.
Especially with online too, because you may not get paid if it's not a reputable client.
Right.
I'm going to add just one thing on that, because I think too, sometimes people can get discouraged if they submit to the same, let's say, producer or production company and they don't get picked. Mm-hmm. I can tell you that, I've posted stuff and I've had people submit and they didn't get the job. And there are probably some of those people who gave up, and then there are some others who didn't, and they eventually got a job. And the reason is that I'm not making the final decision. Mm-hmm. I will go through and vet. I'll put a short list together, and I'll send those to the client, and then the client will make a final decision. Oftentimes, my client has another client. Mm-hmm. So even if we're doing a project and my client is, say, Health Nuts or Jim Garcia or whoever, their end client may be a different hospital or a different school.
Sure.
So just because I didn't pick you, or Tim or Jim didn't pick you, doesn't mean that you're not going to be liked by the end client.
Right.
So, and I learned this even with my daughter when she was auditioning, because I was like, oh yeah, we already did it with that casting agent.
Yeah.
That their end client is somebody else, and
you never know.
Someone else. So
right.
Don't write off anybody.
Absolutely. And to add to that, I actually have a story when I first booked a few of the McDonald's ads. Mm-hmm. I remember I was submitting, and I never got a call back. And then finally,
same agency.
And what was interesting is when I finally booked and I showed up to the session, the producer says to me, well, it's so nice to finally meet you and put a face to you, because we've been listening to your auditions and we've noticed how they've gotten stronger over the last several, submissions. And I was like, really? They're like, yeah. So that's why you're here, and we're going to bring you back. And so it was just, it is what it is. It takes as long as it takes. And sometimes it's just a matter of really kind of finding who you are. Again, to find your niche, like figure what that is. I mean, figure that out. And we all need help with that. That's not something that you can discover on your own usually, I don't think.
Right.
I think it does take,
I think look, if you want to be excellent, whatever you do, you need a coach. That's just reality. It doesn't matter who you are. The best singers in the world still have a coach.
Exactly.
Right? Actors still have coaches. They don't, I got that major role in whatever it is. And
then now I'm good.
I'm good. I don't need another coach to work on my craft. And that's just not reality. And if you don't have a coach, somebody who can give you that real world advice and experience, and just an extra pair of eyes and ears from outside, because we all have blind spots. I have blind spots, and I need somebody else to kind of see, well, where my blind spots are, especially in business and things like that.
Right.
You've been a coach in your bio for 15 years, and you also mentioned the, was it Voiceover.com?
Our online casting is Voiceover.
So tell us a little bit about that and how people can get in touch with you who might be interested in coaching, or some of the workshops you do, as well as the online casting, and we'll include links in the show notes.
Sure. So for the workshops, it's under Voxbox Creative, and that's our other company that kind of supports production. We have a few actual shows that we manage production that are on Netflix now, streaming. So what we like to do is when we do the workshops and we do the coaching, we can cast in-house from who comes and studies with us.
Right.
It makes it easier because we know what they can do. We get to know their personality. We get to kind of see where they fit on the spectrum. Another show that we have that's streaming online now on Tubi is The Jammies, and it was created by Ralph Farquhar, who's a director. Disney just did a press release mentioning him on a new show that's coming out on the Disney Channel called The Proud Family. And so that's another show that we have that we manage, and we're casting, and the longevity of these shows are years, really, because they're kind of ongoing.
Right.
So
nice residual.
Right. And so they can find us on boxcreative.com, and or they can find my information, Jules, at julesjaselle.com. That's my website is julesjaselle.com. There's information on there as well for dates and things like that.
Now, that's for the workshops that
for the
you
workshops.
Run. And who are the workshops for? What do they typically cost and when's the next one?
Sure. So they range. So the ones that we hold in our in-house facility, which is in North Hollywood, they range from, $195. I mean, it's a full day, or we have workout groups that are about $65 for about 3 hours. And those are taken place once a week or once every other week, depending on everyone's schedule. And they're just workout groups where you can kind of come in and just really exercise some of these formulas and the instrument that you need to kind of keep the chops up for any given moment, that something might come up. We bring in producers from different companies, some major networks, some from Disney, Mattel. On the 4th, we're bringing a director from Leapfrog. So he's going to come and talk about voicing for toys and e-learning type things. Yeah. All the topics vary from time to time. Some will be about, singing in character singing, some techniques to support that so that you can stay within, the realm of what you're doing. The shows that we have that are streaming have a lot of singing and acting involved. So you have to be ready to be able to sustain that. The one that we just had was on self-direction. This is another really key component, and that goes in all areas. So it's being able to make choices confidently and following a specific formula. I basically combined some techniques from voice or vocal technique combined with acting techniques that I mean, they work for me. They've been working for me. And if you can create somewhat of a cookie cutter process with them, you'll definitely find some success. People that have been using and applying them have already noticed a skyrocketing of bookings and callbacks and things like that. So they're very proven that they work. So you're not just kind of shooting things in the dark. So those are all things that we have in the near future coming up. The next one on the 4th is going to take place at Apogee Studios. So we have a combination, on recording yourself, self-direction, and then now the application in toys and e-learning. So,
and the age range of people who attend, is there any limit? Is there any experience level they need to have?
No, not necessarily. No, because it touches on a lot of different points. So it's open to ages. Obviously, they have to be able to read. We need you to be able to read.
Children and teens and people like that.
Exactly.
A lot of that.
Exactly. And what we do is we just customize the curriculum depending on who's there.
Right.
And we act accordingly. We group them to where it makes sense for them to work, and that sort of thing. So it's definitely not. Age is not an issue.
Right. Okay.
And level as well.
So we'll include, again, all of that information in the show notes where you can learn more about the workshops, the online platform, the coaching as well. So, Jules, it's been a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for being our first guest here on the Goal Street Creative Pro podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, we're going to ask that you please subscribe and share on social the podcast with anyone you think may be helped or blessed by it. And we've got a lot of great guests coming up in the areas of not just voiceover, but we've got singers and music people, video editors, video producers and filmmakers, people in business, just different creative disciplines. And we're just going to learn from everybody, and hopefully you get some practical tips that you can apply in your craft that will help you move forward, or at least get some ideas regarding what your next steps are. And if you are a voiceover actor or an aspiring voiceover actor, we have a free PDF. It's my top 10 tips for voiceover actors, which I've put together based on my 20 years of experience of producing voiceover, English and Spanish. Just some things that I think will be very, very helpful, especially if you're an aspiring actor who hasn't maybe worked a whole lot. these are things that I look for, that clients are looking for, and some of them are fairly basic. Some of them may be new or you haven't thought of. So you can get that PDF free. Just download. If you go to the show notes, I'll have a link to that. And you can get more information on what we do here at Gold Street and our audio, visual, and marketing services at goldstreet.net. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please take a minute to subscribe and share so that we can grow this podcast and reach and help more people just like you. I'm Eric Michael Kapp, signing off for the Gold Street Creative Pro Podcast. Have a blessed week.